The first shadow outside the frosted glass did not move like a passerby. It stopped where no one had reason to stop, held still for 3 breaths, then shifted aside as another shape joined it. Kai stood with the paper talisman clenched between 2 fingers and felt the room listen. No one spoke. That silence frightened him more than shouting would have. Lena lifted the wooden box from the table. Back room. Kai looked toward the entrance. Are they coming in? Not if they respect the boundary. And if they do not? Dae-hyun smiled without looking away from the door. Then we all learn something useful about their manners. The woman with silver rings sighed. You enjoy the wrong parts of life. Often. Lena caught Kai's sleeve and pulled him toward the curtain behind the counter. He almost resisted. Not because he wanted to stay in the open room, but because every new doorway since sunset had led farther from anything he understood. Kai, Lena said. His name in her voice was not sharp this time. It was practical. Grounding. He followed. Behind the curtain, the bookstore became impossible. Kai's first thought was that his eyes had failed. His second was that the system had finally decided to hallucinate architecture. But the air smelled different beyond the curtain, and his footsteps echoed in a way no hallucination should bother to calculate. The archive was real enough to make the hairs rise along his arms. The ceiling vanished into dimness. Narrow bridges crossed between upper shelves. Tags hung from drawers in scripts Kai did not recognize, though looking at them too long made his vision ache as if meaning were pressing from the other side. Somewhere far off, paper shifted without wind. He turned back once. The curtain still hung behind him, ordinary fabric printed with a faded bookstore logo. Through the gap, he could see a sliver of the counter and the warm front room lights. The normal world was less than 10 steps away and already felt like something remembered from childhood. The back room should have been a narrow storage space. Instead it opened into a long archive lit by pale lanterns that burned without flame. Shelves stretched farther than the building's footprint allowed, packed with scrolls, carved tablets, paper talismans, and locked cabinets marked with silver lines. The air was cooler here, dry and old, carrying the scent of ink and stone. Kai stopped on the threshold. This place is bigger on the inside. Yes. That should bother you more. It did the first month. Lena kept walking. Kai hurried after her because being left alone in a room that ignored geometry sounded worse than accepting it. The talisman in his hand pulsed faintly. Not with heat. With pressure, like a folded thing wanting to unfold. Do I put this on? He asked. Not yet. Why not? Because I want to know what your chi does before we cover it. That answer made sense and did not comfort him. They reached a circular chamber at the back of the archive. Silver lines crossed the floor in rings around a low stone platform. 3 lanterns hung above it. Each lantern contained a different color of light, white, blue, and a muted gold that made the ember in Kai's chest answer softly. Lena set the wooden box on a table near the wall. Sit on the platform. Kai looked at the rings. That sounds like the beginning of a medical bill. It is an assessment, not a treatment. That distinction is also not comforting. You keep expecting comfort from people explaining danger. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Fair. From the front room, voices became low and indistinct. Dae-hyun spoke first, easy and smooth. Another voice answered from outside, older and clipped. Kai could not hear the words, only the shape of disagreement. Lena noticed him listening. Do not chase that conversation, she said. It belongs to people who already know how to survive it. That is difficult to ignore. So is bleeding. You learn priorities. Kai sat on the platform. The silver rings brightened by a fraction. His breath caught. Normal, Lena said. For who? For this room. She opened the wooden box and removed a needle as long as Kai's hand. It was not metal exactly. It looked like polished bone threaded with silver, and it made the ember in his chest contract. Kai leaned back. Absolutely not. It does not draw blood. Kai stared at the needle, then at her face. People always say things like that right before doing something horrible. People have done horrible things to you in clinics. The question was too accurate. He looked away. Lena lowered the needle a fraction. Then hear the full answer. This is voluntary. If you refuse, I will not use it. I will still give you the breathing stabilizer and the talisman instructions. The assessment helps, but your consent is not decorative. Kai did not know what to do with that. A part of him had already braced to be handled like a problem. Another part, smaller and more exhausted, wanted to believe she meant it. That is not my only concern. For the first time since the strangers arrived, Lena's expression softened. I am going to touch it to your wrist. It will map the flow of chi through your meridians. My what? Channels. Like circulation, but for chi. And mine. She considered lying. He saw the decision pass across her face. Yours looks like a candle trying to become a house fire. Kai stared at her. That sounds bad. It is unstable. Bad depends on what you do next. Before he could talk himself out of it, he held out his arm. Lena touched the needle to the inside of his wrist. Pain flashed through him. Not sharp. Deep. A pressure that seemed to pass under the skin and into places he had not known he possessed. Silver light raced briefly along his forearm. The ember flared, then bucked against the sensation. For an instant he saw the shape of something under his skin, not veins exactly, not nerves, but thin lines of warmth branching through him in uneven paths. Some were bright. Some were dim. Some simply stopped, as if his body had begun drawing a map and lost patience halfway through. The sight made him dizzy with a strange intimacy. He had lived in this body his entire life and somehow never known it contained roads. Kai gasped. Breathe, Lena said. I am getting very tired of that advice. Then become good enough that people stop giving it. Anger steadied him better than reassurance would have. Kai inhaled through his nose and followed the breath down toward the ember. The warmth surged once, resisted, then settled into a rough rhythm. The silver light under his skin slowed. Lena watched closely. Good. I can see it. I know. Is that normal? No. He laughed once, breathless. At least you did not say impossible. Impossible is a word people use before updating their notes. That was almost a joke. Almost. A low vibration moved through the floor. The lanterns trembled. Kai froze. Lena's hand tightened around the needle. The front room voices stopped at the same time. The vibration came again. It was not loud. That made it worse. It traveled up through stone and shelving and bone, deep enough that Kai felt it behind his teeth. The ember beneath his ribs pulsed in answer before he could stop it. The silver rings in the floor brightened. Unknown resonance detected. Analysis incomplete. Kai stared at the message. That is all. Lena's eyes snapped to him. What did it say? He repeated the words. Her face changed. Not fear exactly. Recognition with no welcome in it. From the front room came Dae-hyun's voice, no longer amused. Lena. She removed the needle from Kai's wrist and pressed the talisman into his palm. Now you use it? You just said not yet. The situation changed. I noticed. She folded his fingers over the paper charm. Hold it against your chest. Do not push chi into it. Do not resist it either. Let it settle over the ember like cloth over a lamp. Kai obeyed. The talisman warmed. For one strange moment, he felt his own presence dim. Not disappear. Muffle. The ember was still there, but its edges blurred, its light tucked inward. External concealment effect detected. Compatibility, temporary. The vibration rolled through the archive again. One shelf rattled hard enough for a scroll case to fall. It struck the floor with a crack. Kai flinched. Is something waking up? He asked. Lena looked toward the floor. Too long passed before she answered. Something is answering. The front curtain swept aside. Dae-hyun entered first, his easy expression gone. The woman with silver rings followed, and behind her came the broad-shouldered man. None of them looked injured. Somehow that made the urgency in their faces worse. North River is outside, Dae-hyun said. They felt the resonance too. Did they cross the boundary? Not yet. Lena exhaled. Good. Kai looked between them. What resonance? Dae-hyun's gaze dropped briefly to the talisman in Kai's hand. Old North Hollow infrastructure. Dormant channels beneath the district. Old infrastructure, Kai repeated. Like pipes? The word sounded ridiculous in the archive chamber, but it was the only ordinary comparison his mind could reach. Pipes belonged to maintenance workers, flooded basements, bills taped to apartment doors. Veins belonged to bodies. Neither belonged beneath a district full of bookstores and shuttered shops, waiting for a boy with an ember in his chest to stumble overhead. Like veins, Lena said. The floor pulsed once. This time, Kai felt the answer more clearly, something far below, not awake, not asleep, turning in the dark because a distant sound had disturbed it. The system flickered. Resonance source, below. Recommendation, avoid direct contact. Kai's mouth went dry. Dae-hyun heard the change in his breathing. It spoke again. Kai nodded. Lena looked at the others. We move him to the lower ward. The woman with silver rings stared. Toward the source. Toward the shielded room. Unless you prefer leaving a newly awakened ember beside a street full of curious sect members. No one argued. That frightened Kai most of all. Lena helped him off the platform. His legs trembled, but they held. The talisman stayed pressed against his chest, thin paper between his palm and the ember. Dae moved ahead of them, speaking quietly to the broad-shouldered man. The woman with silver rings walked behind Kai, not crowding him but close enough that he felt the shape of her attention at his back. No one touched their weapons, if they had weapons. No one ran. That controlled pace frightened him more than panic would have. Panic meant people were surprised. This meant they had procedures for nights when the ground asked questions. They passed shelves labeled with small brass plates. Flood treatises. Boundary contracts. Failed wells. Names that sounded like municipal records until the ember leaned away from them. Behind one locked cabinet, something tapped once against glass. Kai decided not to look. At the far end of the chamber, a stairway curved downward into blue-gray light. A faint draft rose from it, cold enough to cut through the warmth of the talisman. The vibration below seemed clearer there, not louder, but closer to language. The archive behind them felt suddenly like a surface layer, a place built to contain books, tools, and manageable warnings. The stairway suggested older arrangements. Not secret in the exciting sense. Buried in the practical sense, the way cities buried pipes, bones, mistakes, and anything else they needed to keep functioning while pretending not to remember. Kai tightened his grip on the talisman and felt the ember tuck itself smaller beneath the paper. It did not want the stairs. It wanted answers from them anyway. Lena paused at the first step and looked back at him. Last chance to say no to the lower ward. Kai almost laughed. Is that actually a choice? Yes. Not a safe one, but yes. He appreciated the distinction more than he wanted to. As they moved deeper into the impossible archive, the vibration came once more. This time, Kai did not think it sounded like a roar. It sounded like a question asked from very far underground.